Now back to Inside Real Estate. Here's Mike the Realtor.
Hey folks, we are back. It's Inside Real Estate, website insiderealestateradio.com, insiderealestateradio.com. Guess who we have live here in studio? It's Jared Benson of Perma Pier Foundation Repair of Texas. Folks, the website permapier.com. That's permapier.com. And phone number where you can reach those guys and gals is 214-637-1444, 214-637-1444. Hey, Jared, how's it going?
Hey, Mike. Good morning. I'm doing well.
Good. Sunday morning, and spring is here, and let's get into some foundation talk.
All right. We're getting into this season where people are really starting to think about it, and after the holidays, it kind of takes a little bit of down dip, and it's coming right back up. So it's on everyone's kind of to-do list now.
Yeah, and there's with the storms that kind of come in with the way they do in the spring, we get a lot of water in a short period of time, and so that a lot of times it can cause some erosion and some things can happen. So
it can.
It's a time to remember foundation repair.
Yeah, I heard y'all got a lot of rain last week, didn't you?
Yeah, and got some crazy hailstorms too. Luckily, at my place, we just got kind of pea size and dime size. But there was a part of Arlington. Actually, I was out on a walkthrough at a property over in Crowley, and the gentleman who was one of the contractors on the property lived over Lake Arlington, which is not too far from where I'm at in Arlington.
Yep.
And golf ball and, some baseball-sized hail, he said.
Yeah, I actually have a house over there in those neighborhoods, and so I'm going to have to get that checked out. I was here for the hailstorm, but missed all the rains the week before. I was out of town, so I heard you got a lot of rain then, too.
Yes, we did. And you were down south having a little vacation, you dirty dog?
Yeah, that's right. Family vacation in Panama.
Nice. Loving it. Well, let's talk some foundations. And, I was out yesterday with some clients. We were looking at some older homes, built 1920s, 30s, 40s.
Yep.
And these are obviously going to be pier and beam properties over near kind of TCU area where it's a great opportunity to purchase some older homes still where you can maybe turn them around and get in there and maybe make them into rentals down the line.
A lot of great student rentals over there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And but a lot of folks, this wasn't the case with my clients, but other clients I've had that have looked at older properties, they get a little worried, about those older properties, the foundations, because you do walk in and they do slope here and there, but those
maybe
pier
a few
beams
little cracks here and there, and yeah,
those pier and beams are actually really easy, aren't they?
Yeah, they can be. For those of you who just aren't aware, a pier and beam home is basically a wood structure that's elevated off the ground and by some type of support system. So it can vary wildly depending on when and where they're built, but when maintained properly, they're very easy to go in, make adjustments to, do a lot of do-it-yourself maintenance, kind of, and especially monitoring it is really easy to do on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, folks, if you're thinking about a home that is an older home, maybe 1920s, 30s, whatever the case may be, and in some of those areas, they're maybe near a university or whatever the case may be, don't be worried about it. No big deal.
Yeah, and then it really is, like you said, there's gonna be some floor sloping. There's gonna be maybe some hairline cracks in the walls and the doors and stuff. And, when you think about it, that home's been sitting there for sometimes almost 100 years now.
Yeah.
Well, just remember that structure's still there.
Yeah.
The fact that there's a few little hairline cracks, some minor changes in the elevation of the floor, sometimes that can be corrected with as little as just going in and replacing the shims that are
already there.
Yeah, that are already there. That there probably were wood shims that were put in originally. They've probably compressed over time. Deteriorated. You go in there, you swap them out with some steel stuff. They're not going to compress anymore. And depending on what time of year you go in there too, it could be that wood is just kind of slightly adjusting itself to kind of the humidity or the moisture content. I know the underside. I have a 1955 pier and beam in South Fort Worth, and in the winter it gets a little damper under there just because of the weather, and in the summer it dries out. And so there's some minor just changes depending on what time of year you're looking at it too.
Sure. Yeah. So some great opportunities, particularly over in this area, kind of TCU area, near the university, where great rental opportunity and some great business real estate opportunities over there for folks.
It really is, and when you go in and you look at those homes, it is important to get those looked at. An inspector can tell you, can give you an idea, can tell you if something's really bad,
right?
But he can't really tell you if it's all done properly, and we've talked a little bit about it, I think some other times, and I'm sure you talk about it too, and inspectors have to know such a wide array of things that they can't really know everything about one thing.
Right.
So that's why they're going to tell you to call the expert when they have a question or they're not totally sure. They're going to mark the deficient box if they can't tell you that it's, functioning properly at the time inspected.
Right.
Yeah,
they're very much CYA.
Yeah.
Everything's potentially a problem.
Yeah.
We could go to a brand new house. In fact, I had a client that did an inspection on a brand new house, and of course, leave it to inspector to make a brand new house just built look like it's falling apart. Like, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he might be a little too good at his job if that's what he's doing.
Okay, so. Mr. Inspector Gadgets there.
So, you want to get those looked at. I've been under a home built in the 50s. It was kind of ideally I was looking at it as a rental property. Just it didn't seem like it was where it should be. I walked in there, the listing agent said, hey, we've had other people look at this. They're telling us it's structurally sound. Just needs to be reshimmed. All the stuff that I just said, maybe that's all you need.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that was right. So I crawled under the house myself, and there were masonry bricks propping up joists. There were 4x4 posts stuck under joists on top of a brick. We call those chicken legs.
Right.
And we don't even have a name for the bricks used because you hardly even see that.
Right.
But that's the kind of stuff you see when a handyman does it, a landlord does it himself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want those kind of repairs
holding
the floor up. Yeah, because something's going to happen. They're going to fall over. That in particular, the reason a brick was used was because a joist was cracked and it was sagging where it was cracked. You need to replace that stuff. So just because the floor feels good, you still want to get a pier and beam checked out, especially to make sure there's no wood rot, termites, cracked wood, anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No doubt about it. Got to do your due diligence for sure, but at the same time, a little bit easier to maintain, a little bit easier to deal with, and so it's not something where you got to get scared about it.
No, and I get the question a lot from realtors, especially. They say, well, from a foundation guy, what foundation is better? Is it a slab or a pier and beam? And actually, a lot of the guys I work with, I've asked them the same question when I first started, and they would prefer, if they built their own home, they would prefer to build a pier and beam.
Right. Because
what you're saying, as long as you know what you're doing, you can go in there and you can monitor it. You can make small adjustments when needed. And it is. You can tell what's going on. However, if you're going to be the person who isn't going to look at it, you're not going to pay attention to the things going on around. You're not going to poke your head in the crawl space every now and then and make sure there's no standing water under your house.
Right.
It might not be the best solution for you. So you just have to go in knowing that there's a different set of things you might deal with, but you can actually check for those and monitor those on your own and get someone out there before they become a huge deal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and from the perspective of, thinking about a property over time, if it was to be a family property, and you don't necessarily see this as often anymore where a property is passed down from generation to generation, but a property's changes as far as maybe how it's laid out or how it's configured. And with a pier and beam, moving the plumbing around, so easy moving the utility lines from, I want to take the laundry room from here and I'm going to stick it over there. On a pier and beam house, we can do that no problemo. Guess what? It's real easy to do, but to do that on a slab, it's a mess, and you got to dig up, you got to do all kinds of things. It's a big cost, but thinking of it that way, and especially so if you're looking at remodeling a home and you want to move a bathroom, you want to do this or that.
Oh yeah,
pier and beams are easy to do it.
Yeah, the home that I'm in now, like I said, in South Fort Worth, the previous owners moved walls around, expanded bathrooms, added a big jacuzzi tub in one of those old 1950s master baths that's like 4x4 square, So the fact that they were able to do all of that would have been only possible because it was a pier and beam home. You get under there, they've put all new PVC pipe in, and on a slab home, if you want to do that, you either have to tunnel under the house, which is incredibly expensive,
yes,
or you have to reroute it by trenching and having piping running, in your yard and not under your foundation. Where what happens when someone digs a hole out there?
Right.
It's not going to be as insulated depending on how deep you put it. They might have some issues, maybe not. But it's still expensive. Trenching is still expensive. So if you're able to move them around by just crawling underneath, getting some PVC pipe in there, that's one of the things. That's one of the biggest benefits of a pier and beam is, you will have those foundation issues less because it's not in the soil, it's not through a concrete slab. But when you do, they're so much easier to handle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I was going to custom build something, honestly, I would go that route. I just would. You're stuck when you buy a slab of pretty much whatever's in there is what you got. Moving things around is a little more difficult. You almost go to the option of having to move things around that are already above ground and moving them through walls to get them to where you want to put something. And it's kind of a backwards way of doing it, and really the only way, cost-effective way to do some things like that in the remodeling world anyway.
Yeah, and, adding extra high-pressure water lines in your walls and adding extra joints and elbows and doesn't sound like the ideal situation to me.
Right.
When one of those things decides to go bad on you,
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's see here. Oh, what do we got? A couple minutes left to go here. Let's talk about what we do for the sellers. That's kind of interesting, real quick, to kind of wrap up this segment.
Yeah. So and we'll probably talk about this at some point in the future because there's so much we can talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
What's the market like? Right, I'm gonna switch roles on you right now, Mike.
All right.
What's the market like if you have a good home that's priced well and it looks good?
Well, you're gonna have lots of offers.
Yeah, that's right. That's really basically you're gonna have a lot of offers. It's gonna sell fast.
Yeah.
And what happens when the home looks bad? There's cracks, there's slopes in the floor. It looks like it's fallen down.
And we can't get you a good price.
Yeah, you can't get a good price. You're going to have a bunch of lowball offers. You're going to have the investors who think they have found their deal.
That's right. And they're gonna offer 60% of retail or 50%.
Yeah, because they're gonna, and so they've done their numbers, and that's what works for them, or that's what they think they can get out of you.
That's right.
But when you have a seller who is able to do repairs before they put it on the market, before buyers start coming in and looking at it, it's going to put those buyers at ease, especially first-time home buyers. It's going to help them a lot. They might see on the seller's disclosure that you did foundation repair, but if it looks good, if there's the paperwork to go along with it, it's a totally different mindset for them than if they walk into a house where doors aren't closing and there's cracks in the walls.
Right. So we get you your retail value. As a seller, you don't want to leave money on the table, and so if you have foundation issues, we can get those things taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing about Perma Pier is, guess what? They'll take payment at closing.
We will.
And we'll get you on market. We'll get you sold. We'll get them paid, and so instead of coming out of pocket, boom,
it just comes out of the equity of your home, and everyone walks away a winner. And your buyer gets that warranty in their name, and you don't have to pay for money out of pocket when you're probably, having to pay for moving costs and repainting some walls, or you're going to repaint your new home or anything else. That way you don't have to worry about all that cash coming out of your pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we can save you that money and take it out of the proceeds of the deal, then it's much better for you. Folks, if you're thinking about foundation repair at all, I want you to call permapier.com. permapier.com, and of course the phone number is 214-637-1444. We've been talking to Jared Benson, Director of Marketing over there, and of course you can always get with me and I'll connect you directly to Jared or any of the guys over there, InsideRealEstateRadio.com, for all that information. Folks, hey, Inside Real Estate Radio, we'll see you next Sunday right here.